Hey guys, in this tutorial, we're going to create a very basic environment, such as what you see on this photo here. So we're going to make a hallway scene. It's from a mental hospital for the criminally insane people, and we're trying to give that sickly feel to it. And as you can see here, I added some lights here, and I set the tone by adding some greenish tint to it. So green in relation to being sick. I'm trying to set the mood here with the type of lighting that I added, and we're gonna learn how to do that. We're gonna add lights, we're gonna add some textures here, okay, some shadows on there, and you see there's even a prop there. And this here, this is the scene right there. So there's a box there that I've created, and we're going to be using swift loops, creating holes, bridging, chamfering. We're going to be using those tools. Also on this here we got another box. So all of these things here are made out of boxes, and just manipulated them using the edible poly tools. And this here, the ground is just going to be made out of plain. And we also got some lights here in our scene. As you could see, there's lights there that actually allow us to cast some shadows. So we're going to be learning how to light, okay? And we're going to be learning how to texture, so we could add some textures on our wall, some tile textures and ground texture on our plane. We're going to set all that up in our scene here. This tutorial is for people who have never created an environment before, and this is going to be your, if this is going to be your first time creating an environment, then this tutorial is definitely for you, okay? So let's get started. Just create a new scene. Now, first things first, before we create anything in our scene, I want you guys to be mindful of the Viewcube here, okay? I want you guys to pay attention of where you're looking at, whether you're looking at the front view and the left view, right view, or back view, okay? You don't want to create your environment and you're thinking that you're looking at the front view, but then when you press F on the front view, what you're actually looking at is the back view of the environment. And it's the same when you're doing characters. You don't want to accidentally be creating a character and then you're looking in a different view, okay? So make sure that you pay attention to this Viewcube as you are modeling, okay? That said, let's go ahead and begin. First of all, before we create our basic shapes here, let's go ahead and set this to real world size, okay? We're going to be using real world size as we model, so we get more of the realistic lighting that we need, okay? To set it to real world size, go to customize menu here, go to unit setup, and you're going to see that there's metric, US standard, custom here. Let's go ahead and choose US standard, and from the drop down menu here, just choose feet with fractional inches. It's the easiest way to measure. There's a lot of units that you could use: fractional, decimal, fractional feet. So this is really depending on if you're gonna take your environment to a game engine, so Unreal or Unity. So it really depends on what you're going to be doing with this, but we're not taking this into a game engine. We're just gonna be rendering it in 3D Studio Max, okay? We're just getting our feet wet and starting out with an environment here, very basic environment. So we're just gonna keep it within 3D Max. Feet with fractional inches, and press OK. Okay, so before we create the walls or any props in our scene, we need to create something here that will serve as a guide so that we are able to create things that are in proportion. Alright? Okay, so now let's go ahead and create a skeletal system that we're going to be using as a reference so that everything will be in proportion to that skeletal system. Go to Create tab, go to, you're going to see some categories here. There's geometry, shapes, lights. Let's go ahead and find systems. Click on systems here, and you're gonna see that there's bones, bipeds, daylight. Let's go ahead and click on the biped. We're gonna be creating a biped system here. Just click and drag into the middle of your scene. Alright, so now we have the skeletal guy here. Right click on the background to exit the biped tool. So just make sure you turn that off by right clicking the background. Alright, so make sure it's off. And then select the pelvis bone. With the pelvis bone selected, just go to the motion tab, which is going to be this circular overlapping circles there, the tab there. And I want you guys to go to the biped rollout, and you're going to find figure mode. I want you to click on the figure mode there. So clicking on the figure mode right here, and then that will allow us to get the structure rollout, which is what we're going to need to set this guy in real world size. Structure, and then scroll down, you're going to find that the height option here for the structure rollout. So right now he's 9 foot high. Let's go ahead and set him to 6 foot and press enter. Okay, so 6, and then just press apostrophe on your keyboard and press enter to get the 6 foot size there. Or you can just click and drag onto the arrows here to get the real world size that you want. Okay, and once that's done, just go ahead and turn off the figure mode. Alright, turn that off. Okay, so we got a real world size guy here, and we're gonna use him as a guide so that everything doesn't get out of hand, so we're not making things too small or too big. Okay, let's go ahead and start creating our walls. Go to create tab, go to geometry, and on the standard primitives, just click on box. We're gonna start with the box there. Click and drag. I think that's, let's see what's the height of that. If you go to modify tab, and for the box here, it looks like the height is 7 foot 5 inches. So I think I want to make it 9 foot is fine. There you go. And then I could increase the length of this, and I could just move it forward. And remember, be mindful of the view cube here of what you're looking at. So right now I'm looking at the front view, and the front view is the skeletal system looking straight at us. Okay, and after this, what we're going to be doing is just duplicating this. Alright, hold the shift key and just duplicate it, move it to the right. And you're going to see some clone options. You got the copy, instance, reference. If you set it to copy, that means it's just going to make a copy of this, which is fine. And what does instance do? Let me show you what instance does, okay? Let me just hit cancel right here. Okay, cancel that. Now, if I convert this box editable poly, right, and I make a copy of this, hold shift, and then this clone option pop up. And this time, if I choose instance right here instead of copy, right? So let me just choose instance. Okay, choose instance and press OK. Now if I go to vertex selection mode for this here, for this box, and I select the vertices here and I move this up. So what that does is, since I set it to instance, whatever I do for this box now is affecting the original copy. Okay, so instance is if you know that the object that you're making is going to be exactly the same, and whatever you do on one object you want it to affect the other, then choose instance. Okay, and in my case I don't want this to be an instance of the first box here because it's going to have different details on there. Okay, so let me just turn off selection mode and just delete that. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make make a copy of this and set it to, not set it to, so I'm going to set it to copy because it's going to be a different type of details that's going to be on there, and press OK. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to make another copy of this box, and this time I'm going to make a copy for the ceiling. Okay, so I'm going to go to rotate tool, and I'm just gonna turn on the snap here, which will allow us to snap to an angle. Hold shift, and then I'm gonna be rotating as I hold shift, so that will allow us to make a copy while it's being rotated, and 90 degrees, and set it to copy and press OK. And I'm just going to use the move tool to move it up. So this is going to be for the ceiling. There you go. And now for the wall, the back wall, alright, so I don't want it to just have a space there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just create a plane. I'm going to go to Create tab, Plane. Go ahead and create a plane there. And just rotate it 90 degrees. And use the move tool. And move it up. There you go. And for the ground is just going to be a plane also. So I'm just going to go to Create tab and go to Plane and just create a plane right here. And I don't really need all these segments for the plane. There's a lot of loops there. So I'm just going to go to Modify tab and set the segments to 1. So if you're going to be adding some details on the ground, so let's say you're going to be extruding some polygons or move some vertices off, so let's say you want to create a mountain, then you could set some more segments there. But for this one here, it's just going to be a flat floor, so I don't really need all those loops. So setting the segments to 1 there. And looking at this now, I think I do want to scale. I want to scale the box a little bit longer. Actually, for all 3, I want to scale a little longer. And then just move it. So I just scaled it a little longer so that when I could find a better view where I could see more of the walls on both sides. Okay. Alright, so once that's done, I could go ahead and let's go ahead and start creating the window opening here. Okay, so we're going to create a window opening there, and we're going to be using Swift loops to create our loops here that we need for the window. So with the box here selected, make sure the box selected, go to Edit, Swift Loop, and let's go ahead and add Swift loop where we need it. Right there and right here. Press F4 on your keyboard so you can see where your Swift loops are going. There and here. Okay. And going to polygon selection mode, just selecting that polygon and press delete on your keyboard. And also on the other side, select the polygon there and press delete. Now what we're going to do is we're going to isolate this box by pressing Alt-Q on your keyboard. And looking at this now, without the other objects in the scene, we could see clearly it looks a little long, the window. So I'm just going to go ahead and go to vertex selection mode and select the vertices. Select the vertices here, okay? And then using the move tool to just move it closer to each other, the vertices on both sides of the window there. And if you zoom into the window, you could see that there's the hollow space here, so there's no polygon filling this area up. Okay, so we're gonna need to fix that. I want you guys to go to edge selection mode. Okay, I want you guys to select the edge here and the edge there. Okay, select those 2 edges. So we're in edge selection mode, select those 2 edges, control click to select multiple edges, and then you're gonna go to the edit edges rollout and you're gonna see the bridge tool. I want you guys to click on the bridge tool there, clicking on the bridge tool here, and that will allow us to create a polygon in between those 2 edges. Okay, so now there's no more hole here, it's no longer hollow in this area, and we got to do the same thing for the others here. So now select this edge and this edge, okay, and then we're gonna be bridging that so that there's not going to be any hollow space, there's not going to be any hole there. So select that edge, this edge, and then click bridge. There you go. And same thing on this side here, and bridge. Select this edge, this edge. So just 2 edges at a time, okay? And then bridge. There you go. And then we could go ahead and unhide, right click on the background and click on unhide all to unhide the rest of the objects there. So we got the window opening. Now it's time to create the entryway. So there's going to be an entryway here on this side. Alright, so now we have this box selected. Alright, so let's just go ahead and turn off the selection mode for this. Turn off the selection modes. So make sure none of these are on so that you can select the next object in the scene, which is going to be this box here on the right. And for this one, we're just going to go ahead and add a swift loop, 2 swift loops, and another swift loop going horizontally so that we could have an entryway there. Okay, so going to edit. If you don't see the graphite modeling tools, there could be a reason for that. Maybe you did not convert it to editable poly. So make sure that you have converted it to editable poly in order for you to be able to see the swift loop. Alright, edit, swift loop, and go create swift loop here and swift loop here, and maybe right there. Maybe it could be a little higher. There you go. Or the door. It's kind of like an entryway where people could go into. And then go into polygon selection mode. Select polygon there and polygon here at the back, and just press delete. And then let's go ahead and isolate this object. Alt Q on your keyboard to isolate. And we could just delete this here. Delete that polygon. As you can see, there's some holes here. Alright, we're going to have to bridge those edges. So select 2 edges at a time, bridge. There you go. And bridge. And bridge that. Okay. Right click, unhide all. So we got the entryway, we got the window opening. Okay. And now let's go ahead and work on the roof here, on the ceiling. Alright, we're going to be creating for that, we're going to be adding some swift loops here because we're going to be using some of these as light fixtures, where the light fixtures are going to go into. Okay, so just make sure that you turn off the selection modes for the object you have selected, and go select the next object in the scene. Alright, which is in this case ceiling, and then go into the swift loop, edit, swift loop, create here, probably so it has to be going horizontally, and now going vertically. There you go. And let's see what we have there. Okay, so I actually kind of want it to be a little bit more even, something like that. So we could choose, I guess from here, we could choose where the light fixtures are going to be. So I'm just going to select this. Okay, or probably this. I guess we'll just do, you know what? I'll just stick with two of them. Delete it. Okay. and also at the top. So that part there and this part, press delete. Alt Q to isolate it. Okay, so now it's time to bridge them. Go to edge selection mode, bridge. Let's do this part first. Bridge this here also, bridge that. This one, bridge. Alright, so that part's done, and let's do this part here. Bridge. Okay, so everything's all closed up there. Now, what we're gonna be doing is we're gonna have to create 2 boxes. Alright, we're gonna have to create 2 thin boxes. Sorry about my drawing. And then we're gonna place it here for the light fixture. Okay, we're gonna do it for both of these. So go to create tab, go to box, and this is gonna be for the light bulb fixture, the light fixture. And you're not just gonna be, when you're creating an environment, you're creating a character, you're not just gonna be looking in one view the entire time. It's beneficial to be looking in all views. T for top view, F for front view, L for left view. Okay, so if you go T for top view, you're kind of looking at like a floor plan. Press F3 on your keyboard, F3 to hide the color, and all you see is the wires. But right now, as you can see, I'm on the top view right now, right there. Okay, so if you want to make things accurately here in 3D Max, get used to using different views. So right now, using this, moving this box, looking from the top view, and I'm just going to be moving it in place, and I'm gonna press F for front view. As you can see from the front view, it's all the way at the bottom, so I'm just gonna move it up using the move tool. And I could press F3 on the keyboard to hide the solid color so I could see what's inside. F3 again, just bring that back color. Press P for perspective view, back in perspective view. And I could use the scale tool to make the box just a little bit thinner, and just move it up, move it down. Okay, so something like that. And then I'm going to make a copy of that, holding the shift key, just making a copy. Press this. I actually want it to be instant, so whatever I do on the light fixture is gonna do it to the original. Press OK. Okay, that's fine. Now I'm gonna right click and unhide all to unhide everything. Okay, now I actually want to create a prop here. Okay, the kind of prop that I'm gonna make is, let me show you guys here. Okay, so this is the kind of prop that I'm going to create here in the scene. So this here is just going to be made out of a thin box. Okay, it's going to be a box. This is also going to be a box, long boxes. So a lot of these are just boxes, and this is just going to be, we're going to start that out with a cylinder, and we're going to make copies of that. Alright, so boxes and cylinders, that's what this is made of. Okay, so let's just go ahead and start modeling this part, and then we're going to move on to the legs. Okay, and then at the end we're going to do the wheels. Okay, so going back to 3D Max, let's go ahead and do the top part of the table. Go to box, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn on auto grid. What auto grid does is it allows you to create the basic shapes right on the surface. So with auto grid turned on, if I hover my mouse over the wall here and I click and drag, you see what it does? It creates the box right on the surface of the wall. So if I go to box and I don't have auto grid turned on, and if I try to do the same thing here, see how it just creates it right on the grid on the ground there. Okay, let's delete that. Okay, so going to box, Now I'm gonna be creating the top part of the table, so I guess I could just, I don't need to I don't need to have auto grid turned on because I do want it on the ground. So maybe if you're creating something that's going to be on the surface of the wall, then you could turn on auto grid, but this is just going to be for where the ground is at. So I'm just going to click and drag and thin box like that, and then go to the move tool and move it up. So if you guys want to know the shortcut, if you don't know the shortcut for these, for the move tool, rotate tool, and scale tool, to go to the move tool with a shortcut is W on your keyboard, the rotate is E on your keyboard, and the scale tool is R on your keyboard. Move tool is W, rotate is E, and scale tool is R. So W, E, R. Okay, get used to the habit of using those shortcuts. It'll make your life easier. Okay, so we got that there. Now what I actually want to do is I want to hide everything except for the skeletal system and this new box that we're creating, so we're going to be able to see better the proportion of our table as we are creating it. Okay, the proportion in relation to the skeletal system. So I'm just gonna go ahead and select the walls, all the walls, including the ground. So remember, if you want to select multiple objects, you gotta hold Control on your keyboard as you click and drag. So selecting everything except for the skeletal system and the box here that we just recently created. Right click and hide selection. So it hides everything that you have selected. So now all that we have left is the skeletal system in this box right there. And just moving that here. Okay, and I'm just going to scale it, go ahead and scale it. So it's good to have the skeletal system there, so we could use it as a guide. Nice guide for us to make sure that things don't get out of hand, doesn't get too big or too small. Alright, now convert the box to editable poly. As you can see here, it's too sharp, the edges, so let's say I want to round out those edges. All you gotta do is go to edge selection mode, okay, edge selection mode. Select the edges on the corners, Control click to select multiple edges, and then we're gonna use in the edit edges rollout, okay, we're gonna be using the chamfer tool. Okay, what we're gonna be actually doing is clicking on the chamfer settings right there. So click on chamfer settings and you will see this caddy interface pop up, and you could crank up the chamfer amount right here. As you could see what's happening there, it's rounding out the edges, and what we could do is increase the connect edge segments here. Alright, don't make the segments, be careful with this one, you don't want to crank it all the way up, otherwise your computer will crash. Okay, don't let the number go over 5, and if you have a slow computer, I suggest you keep it a low number. Okay, so I think about 4 would be good enough, and you see how it rounded the edges there. And then I'm just gonna click on the check sign to agree with the settings. Alright, cool. Now it's time to do the legs of the table. So these are all just gonna be some long boxes, pretty easy to create. I'm gonna go to turn that off. Alright, if you want to turn off the selection mode, you could just click them to turn this off, or you could right click and then go to top level selection mode to turn off the selection mode. Let's go ahead and create tab and create a box. This is going to be for the legs. And it's a little too thick. I could go to modify tab and decrease the width and the length. And I'm gonna use the align tool here to align it in the middle. Press OK, and then using the move arrow here to just bring it there to the front and then move it down. Okay, and still a little too thick, I think. That's fine. And I'm gonna be, let's go ahead and use the rotate tool, hold the shift key and rotate 90 degrees. and I'm just gonna set it to copy, press OK, move here and scale it. Actually, I'm just gonna go to the modify tab and scale it through here. Scale it through the width. No, it's the height. I'll just use the scale tool and then move it. Still a little long. Okay, something like that. Okay, now doing this part here, it's just going to be another box. Hold shift and rotate 90 degrees, copy and scale it using the move tool to just move. Use the arrows as you're moving so you get an accurate movement there. And then I'm just gonna select this box here, hold shift and copy that. Copy and press OK. Okay, cool. We got that. Now we're gonna be doing the wheels, which is gonna be made out of cylinder. Go to create tab, cylinder, and let's go ahead and create our cylinder. Too big, scale it down. And there's a bunch of lines going horizontally, so there's a bunch of lines here which we don't really need because this is going to be a fairly plain cylinder with, it's not like we're going to be using the vertices or the edges here to give it some shape, you know, so we don't really need those loops. So with the cylinder selected, go to the modify tab and you could just go to the height segments here, height segments, and bring it all the way down. Okay, and then let's go ahead and rotate 90 degrees. There you go. And if you guys take a look here, there's something here for the cylinder. Oops. Okay, so we have this shape here on the cylinder, right? So we're gonna create that there. So how do we create that? Let me show you. I want you guys to follow me step by step for this one here. Convert the cylinder to editable poly. Right click, convert to editable poly. Go to polygon selection mode. Select the polygons at the top and a little bit on the side there. Go to the move tool. Hold the shift key as you move the blue arrow. Move it up. And then just make sure when you see this window that you choose, this is very essential, choose clone to object. Okay, so make sure that you click on clone to object so that this piece that we're making a copy of from the cylinder shape becomes a separate piece. Okay, so clone to object, press OK. So now this cylinder is now a separate piece from this mesh here that we have extracted. Okay, alright, so in order to select the next object next to it, this right here that we made a copy of, make sure that you turn off the selection mode. Alright, and then select the next object there, which is going to be the top part here. And if you move it up, you can see that the move tool is not right on the object where it's supposed to. To fix that, just go to hierarchy tab right here, effect pivot, and click on center to object. And just make sure that you turn off effect pivot only. Turn that off again. Okay, so now you got the move tool where it's supposed to go, and you can just move it down, and you can see it's paper thin. You don't want it to be paper thin, so go to modify tab, modifier list, and we're gonna be adding a modifier called shell modifier right here. Okay, that will allow us to have thickness onto our mesh, and that's way too thick. Just bring down the outer amount a little bit, and then you can just move it down. There you go. So we got that shape going. Alright, that shape that we see here on the wheel. And what we could do is we could create a cylinder, because if you guys take a look, there is this shape here that connects the wheel onto the leg of the table there. So go to create tab, let's create another cylinder, and this time we could actually use the auto grid because we actually want to create that right on the surface at the top here, okay, the cylinder. So with auto grid turned on, cylinder turned on, just click and drag onto the mesh, click and drag. There you go. And you can just kind of move it. Rotate. There you go. And what I could do is I could group these together because right now they're all separate, right? So I could select everything. I could go to group, and click group, and I just name it wheel. So now they're all in the same team, the same group, right? If you want to ever go back to selecting it individually, all you got to do is go back to group, open the group right here. So now you're able to select things individually again, okay? And if you want to go back and select it as a whole, you go to group and just close the group. There you go. And I'm just gonna go ahead and move it where it's supposed to go. And let me double check. Yes. And then just make a copy, hold shift, make a copy of that. Copy. Probably should have just made that instance because I want them to be exactly the same, but it's okay. It's not like I'm gonna make any more changes to that. Alright, so now what we need to do now is we need to group everything together, right? Group all the pieces for the table here. So select everything. Make sure you don't select any part of the skeletal system. If you accidentally select part of the skeletal system, just make sure you click off in the background. Or you could hold the Alt key to deselect. Okay, so now let's go ahead and group the table as a whole. Alright, so now if I select, they're all in one piece. And just right click and unhide everything in the scene. So there you go, we have our modeling done, the modeling part of the section for our environment completed. And now we're gonna have to move on. Next we're gonna have to move on to the texturing and the lighting part. So let's go ahead and start working on our textures. So we're gonna be needing a few pictures that we need to download online. We're gonna be downloading a tile texture that we're gonna be placing on our walls and our ceiling, and we're also gonna need a marble texture that we're gonna place on our ground here on our floor. Now for the window glass, speaking of the window glass, we forgot to create an object there for the glass window. So let's go ahead and create that right now. Just go to create tab, go to box. Let's go ahead and create a really thin box that will serve as a glass. Move it up, rotate it 90 degrees, and move it here. So this is going to be for our glass, alright? So something like that. Probably a little too big. Okay. So you might want to look in all views. Press F for front view, L for left view. So looking from the left view, I could see this more clearly. There you go. I gotta fix that there. P for perspective. Scale it. There you go. Okay, I think that should be good now. So we're gonna be adding a glass material here later. Okay, I'll show you how to do that. Okay, so we got everything. Let's go ahead and begin downloading the textures that we need from the internet. Okay, I've already downloaded my photos that I need for my textures. So as I said before, you're going to need a tile texture. So this is the tile texture that I got from the internet, and I'm going to be using this floor texture right here, which is going to be just marble, and also a dirt map here that I'm going to be blending in with the floor because I want the floor to be a little bit grungy. Okay, now just go to google.com, right? Google.com, and when you go to Google, just go to images. So you want to find your textures for both the ground, the walls, and also you need the dirt map. Okay, so starting with the wall, you could just type in tiles, tile texture, and then don't forget to type in the word seamless. Okay, tile texture seamless, and then press enter. Okay, so you got a bunch of photos here that you could download. The reason why we are entering the word seamless here, because we want our texture, when we apply it onto the object, we want it to be seamless, because we're going to be applying a modifier that will allow us to repeat the texture in 3D Studio Max. And when the texture repeats itself, we don't want it to have seams in the middle. So let me show you what I'm talking about here. Okay, so this, let me show you. This right here, this is seamless, and when you find a texture that's not seamless, this is how it's going to look like. Okay, so you could see that there's like these nasty seams everywhere. Okay, because we're going to be repeating the texture for the object. All right, when we repeat a texture that's not seamless, this is how it's going to look like. Okay, so you don't want that. You want it to look more like this one. Okay, so every time you go to google.com and you find a texture, I suggest that you type in the word seamless there. I mean, you probably don't have to do that all the time, but I do this because most of the time it gives me a lot of seamless photos. It gives me better search results. But when you find something that's seamless, how can you tell it's seamless? You could tell that it's seamless by hovering your mouse over the picture, and if you look at the width and height, okay, so let's say for this one here, this texture, it's 1900 by 1900, 1900 by 1900. So since it's equal in width and height, this is going to be seamless. Okay, now if you hover your mouse, let's see over here for this one here, it says 599 by 409. So the width and height is not equal. So if you use this as a texture, you're gonna have nasty seams that look more like this right here. Okay, so you don't want these nasty seams. All right, so you want to find a texture. Make sure when you're finding a texture that you hover your mouse over it and make sure that they are equal in width and height. So this one is good, it says 1024 by 1024. Okay, this one is bad, it says 2560 by 1600. This is not equal in width and height. You want a perfect square. Okay, so let's say that you like one of the textures here. All you gotta do is click on it and click on it again, see if there's a bigger version of that. Okay, it looks like there's none, but yeah, so let's say that you want to save this photo, right? You right click, save image as, and make sure that you know where you're saving your file, because you're gonna have to relocate it later. So make sure, if you take note, if whether you're saving it in your documents folder, downloads folder, or in your flash drive, just make sure that you know exactly where you're saving. Okay, because you're gonna have to look for it later when we go back to 3D Studio Max. So just give it a name, any name that you want, and then hit save. Right, so find a tile texture, tile texture seamless, and also you need to find a marble texture. So just find any texture that you like, just make sure that it is seamless. It doesn't have to look exactly the type of tile that I have or the type of marble that I have. Okay, you could find any marble, but just make sure that you check on the width and the height. Okay, and also you're also going to need a dirt map. Okay, so dirt map texture. For this one, it doesn't really have to be, it doesn't have to be seamless, because we're not going to be repeating the texture here for this one. Okay, But if yeah, just find a dirt map texture, that is fine, and it's going to be really subtle anyway, so you're not even gonna see the seams. So we're gonna add subtle dirt on our ground. Okay, so you could download any dirt here that you like. Okay, and if you could get a bigger version of it by clicking, the bigger the photo, the more high quality it will look, the render will look. Okay, so find a dirt map texture, and once you got it all, you could go back to 3D Studio Max. All right, so just make sure you know where you're saving. So I have mine in my hard drive, so make sure that you know where they are at. Okay, look in your documents wherever it is. So going over my textures again, I have a tile right here, and I have marble, and I have dirt. So 3 textures that you need. Make sure the tile and the marble are seamless. Now back to 3D Studio Max. Let's go ahead and go to the material editor, press M for material editor, and this window should pop up. And if you were working on 3D Studio Max previously and you were working on some materials, you could just clear out the view that you have there, since you're not going to need them anymore. To clear this out, alright, all you got to go do is go to edit here, edit menu, and click on clear view. And then it says, do you want to clear the current node view? All nodes in the view will be deleted. I don't need these materials anymore, so I'm just going to press yes. Okay. Alright. Now let's go ahead and go to the standard rollout, and then in the standard rollout you're going to find standard material. Okay, I want you guys to double click on the standard material here, and then you could just zoom in by scrolling your mouse. You could pan to the left, pan to the right by holding the middle mouse button. Okay, so it's kind of like how you navigate in the viewport. Okay, same keys. And then just go ahead and double click on the material here, so you could see the properties on the right side here. All right, so double clicking, and then you see that. Now I want you guys to look at the diffuse here. We're going to be adding the tile texture that we've downloaded from the internet. We're gonna assign it onto the diffuse color slot right there. Okay, so we're gonna click on that little rounded square button there. Okay, so hover your mouse over here where it says diffuse and then none right there. Click on it, and the material map browser will pop up. All right, so with that popping up, you're going to see that there's this bitmap. All right, on the general rollout maps. Okay, bitmap. I want you guys to double click on bitmap, and then 3D Studio Max will ask you where did you save your textures. So it says look in, find out where it's at, your textures. So my textures are going to be here. There it is. And I'm just gonna double click on the tile texture right here. This is where it's at. Double click on it. So now once you do that, you could see that there's the letter M, so that means there's a texture map on the diffuse slot. Okay, so and if you go look here, you should see that your texture map, the tile texture map, has been assigned onto the diffuse color slot. And you could basically zoom in here. If you zoom in, you could kind of see it too also there. All right, that there's the tile applied on the sphere. Okay, so now that has been applied, we could assign this texture onto our wall here. So select all of your walls and the ceiling, control click to select multiple objects, and control. All right, and then we're gonna assign our tile texture onto everything that's selected, right? So right click on the material, click on assign material to selection, so it will assign a material to whatever you have selected. And right now we don't see anything. To make the texture show up, you got to make sure that you click on show material and viewport right here. Okay, so click on show shaded material and viewport. If you hover your mouse over these, it will tell you what they are. So it's get in the habit of reading these. So it's gonna tell you right there. And once you click on that, it should show up the texture. And you could see that the tiles are way too big. So this is when we're gonna have to apply a modifier onto our walls that will allow us to repeat the texture. Okay, so it will become smaller. So just go ahead and minimize your material editor, select one of the walls, so just select this here, and we're gonna add a UVW map modifier here to scale down the texture. Go to modifier tab here. Alright, modify tab, and go to the modifier list here, and you're gonna find a modifier called UVW modifier. Scroll down, you're gonna see UVW map modifier right there. Just click on it, and it looks weird, right? We gotta go ahead and mess around with the settings for the UVW map modifier. Okay, so first thing we're gonna mess with is you're just gonna mess around with the mapping of the UVW map modifier. So right now planar obviously doesn't work. Let's mess around with the other ones. Cylindrical, nope. Spherical, nope. Shrink, box. Yep, box is the one that works the most because the wall that we have is shaped more like a box. It doesn't shape, it's not shaped like a cylinder. Planar could be, but we're gonna have to probably do modify a lot of settings here to get it right. So let's just do the box here because it's working a lot better from the beginning. So with the box mapping, that's good. And then now what we have to do to scale this down is go to the triangle here for the UVW map modifier, click on that triangle, and then you're gonna see under that UVW map modifier is the word gizmo. I want you guys to click on the word gizmo, alright, gizmo of the UVW map modifier. Go to the scale tool, alright. Remember the shortcuts for the move, rotate, and scale is W-E-R, okay? R, alright, shortcut for scale, and with the gizmo selected, just go ahead and scale it down. So scale it down until you get the type of size that you need. So probably, okay, I think like that is fine, okay? So now this wall is good, alright. Now we're gonna have to do this object and this object to fix the texture for those, and also the one at the back. Alright, so what we're just going to do is we're going to be copying the UVW map modifier that we have assigned on this object, and we're going to copy and paste it on this object, and the wall at the back, okay? So how do you do that? Just go, click on UVW map here, right click on it, copy, and go ahead and click on the next object where you want it to be copied to, okay, which in this case the right wall here, and make sure you're on modify tab, right click and paste, and there you go. And same thing for the ceiling, the roof here, select that, right click, paste, there you go. And also for the plane at the back, right here, select the back wall, right click, paste. Okay, so everything is good now. So let's say you're happy with the UVW map modifier, right? You could always collapse this to make it permanent, because let's say you go to edible poly, right? Okay, you go to click the edible poly. Look what happens. It goes back. You go back to the original settings of how it looked before. Okay, so if you want to make this permanent already, you don't want it to go back to the original. You don't want to accidentally mess it up. What you could do is right click on the UVW map modifier, collapse all, and it's asking you, do you want to remove everything the stack selected and apply it to the creation of modifier parameters? Just press yes, and then now it's permanent on the wall, the UVW map modifier. We could do the same thing for the other ones. Right click, collapse all to make it permanent. Same thing for this. Right click, collapse all. Right click, collapse all, and press yes. Okay, but if you know that you gotta go back to the UVW map modifier, I suggest that you don't collapse it. Okay, if you know there's a chance that you're gonna have to fix the scaling of the texture again, but for now I'm actually quite happy with this. Okay, so we got the texture for the wall, right? If we render this out, let's see how it looks like when it's rendered. Okay, so we got the wall here, and you could see that the tiles are not showing here because of the shadows. There's a default lighting here, but we're going to be fixing this later when we get to lighting, okay? But the texture is there. Now, what we're going to be doing is we're going to make the wall pop up a little bit more by adding a bump map. We're going to make this wall a little bit more bumpy so it actually looks like you could actually feel it, you know, like there's roughness to it. So let's go ahead and spice up the wall a little bit, okay? So press M for material editor, okay? Go back to the material that you had before that you created, double click on it to make sure that you are looking at the properties on the right here. I want you guys to go click on the maps rollout there, and you're gonna see there's some slots here. It shows you that you already have a map for the diffuse color, okay? So basically that's the tile texture map that we have used, that we have assigned on our diffuse color before. All right, now what we're going to be doing is we're going to be clicking the texture map that we have here, and we're going to drag it onto the bump map section. This is the bump that we're going to be used that will make our wall here pop out, okay? So you could watch me first and then you could do it yourself, okay? So I'm going to hover my mouse over the texture map here for my diffuse color, all right? Click, hold, and drag it onto the bump map here where it says no map. And then this window is going to pop up here. I'm just going to set it to instance. So just in case I want to go back to my diffuse texture map and modify this, it will automatically do it onto the bump map here also. I'm just going to set it to instance, press OK. And then what you need to do is make sure that the bump is checked on and make sure that the amount for the bump is larger than 30. Otherwise, you will not see any changes. So just set it to about 300 or more. All right. And then if you render again, all right, you go back to the rendering, click on the render production teapot there. You should see the changes that's been created. You see how it made it pop up a little bit more there. Okay. There's some added roughness to it, and you could even see some of the bumps here even on this side of the wall when it was previously dark, okay? So if you want to look at it, you want to do a little test. If I uncheck the bump, all right, if I uncheck that and I render this again, so this is how it looks like without the bump. And if I turn on the bump, render it, there you go. This is how it looks like with the bump, okay? So just make sure it's checked on. Make sure you have the amount value there, okay? Set it to a high value so you can see it. So mess around with the value, see which one works best for you, just so you could see what's going on with the roughness, so you could get some roughness there. Okay, so we got our wall texture. Now let's go ahead and do our ground texture, okay? We're gonna have to create a new material for this, okay? So with the material editor, all right, just go to scan line and let's go ahead and create another standard material. Double click and then double click on the text here. I think we should get into the habit of renaming our stuff. So I'm just gonna go ahead and rename this. I'm just gonna call this marble floor, okay, underscore floor. Okay, so for this here, we're going to be doing something different. We're going to be adding the dirt and the floor, and we're going to be blending in together, all right? We're going to add it all onto the diffuse slot, those two textures. We're going to blend it all onto this texture slot, okay? So how do you do that? Go to the diffuse slot here, and instead of clicking on bitmap, okay, we're going to scroll down. Okay, I want you to scroll down and find composite. All right, we're gonna double click on composite map. Double click on that. Okay, so once you have that there, all right, if you zoom out, you could see that there's the composite map connected to the diffuse color, and you also see the letter M here. Okay, so there are different ways to go about so that we could access the layering here, the layers, okay? Because in these layers is where we're gonna assign our textures for our floor and dirt, okay? So you could either go to the letter M, click on the letter M, or you could double click on the map composite so that it will bring you to the layers area for the composite map, okay? So there's currently just one layer. We're actually going to need 2 layers that we're going to be blending in together for the floor and the dirt. Okay, so how do you create a new layer? All you gotta do is click on the plus sign here. Okay, hover your mouse over there, it says add new layer. Click on that. So now we got 2 layers. One is going to be for the dirt map and the other one is going to be for the floor map. Okay, so these are the textures that we're going to be adding. So I'm going to add the floor and also the dirt. These 2 photos. Okay, so starting out, the first one is going to be a dirt. I'm just going to click on the none slot right here where it says none, and then this time you're actually going to go to the bitmap, double click on bitmap, and find the dirt map texture that you downloaded from the internet. Double click on it. Okay, so now that's plugged in onto the first layer, and on the second layer we're going to add the floor map. Click on where it says none, bitmap, and find the floor texture. Okay, so now we got those 2 layers in here. Okay, we got the dirt map here and we got the floor map here. Okay, now how do you blend it together? All right, because if you zoom in here, you see the sphere, it's not showing the floor, it's only showing the very first layer, which is going to be the dirt map. So how do you blend these in so you're going to see both textures? All right, watch closely. All you gotta do is go to the first layer, which is going to be the dirt map, right? And you're gonna click on the drop down triangle for the blending mode. So click here and then find multiply right there, and when you set it to multiply and you look at your sphere now for your material, you can see that there's the there's the floor and the dirt now showing together, blending in. Okay, if you guys go around and play with the other stuff here, it gives you different results. Okay, so it blends in differently depending on the blending mode that you choose. The best one to me to use is going to be multiply, so just set it to multiply. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to be assigning this texture now, this material, onto our ground, to our plane here. Okay, so just select your plane, right click, assign material to selection. Okay, and right now it doesn't show the texture, so remember, to make it show, all you gotta do is click on show shaded material in viewport. Alright, right here, click on that, and as you can see, the dirt is way too harsh. It's just blackness, right? It's way too black. So just go ahead and double click on that material where you have your floor texture and go to the letter M, right? So that will allow us to access the layers. If you go to the letter M, or by double clicking on the map here, allow you to access the layers. Now for the layer where you have the dirt, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be decreasing the opacity of that so that it will lessen the opacity of the dirt, so it's not so harsh, not so intense. So if you just, there's some arrows here, you could bring it up or down. All right, so mess around with the arrows here. So messing around with that, I think I am happy with about 29. Okay, so this is a good dirt for me right there. That's fine. Okay, that's okay. So mess around with the opacity to get the type of dirt intensity that you need. Okay, alright, so we got our ground texture, we got our tile texture, roof, we got that done. And now we're gonna have to add a glass window material onto our glass here. Alright, so let's go ahead and create a new standard scanline standard material. Double click on that, double click here, and just go ahead and rename it glass underscore matte. And for this one, actually we're not going to use a glass standard matte. My bad, go ahead and delete that, guys. We're actually going to be using something else. We're going to use this nice architectural, it's still under scanline. Alright, so make sure you're still on the scanline rollout. We're going to be using the architectural map. Let's go ahead and play around with that one. So double click on architectural. Alright, double click on architectural, and let's just go ahead and rename that glass underscore matte new. Alright, and you guys go to the user define, if you guys go to templates here, and then if you guys click on the drop down arrow for the user define, you're going to see a lot of presets here, material presets that you could use. There's fabric, glass, metal, stone, different types of presets. Let's just go ahead and use the glass clear. All right, click on that. And then we're going to assign this glass clear material onto our glass window. All right, right click, assign material selection. There you go. So we got our glass there. And also we're going to have to add some glow materials on our light texture here, okay, our light fixtures. So we got 2 boxes here that we've created, okay. We're going to create a material for those. Go to scan line, go to standard, double click on standard to create a new material, and let's go ahead and rename that material light fixture underscore matte, and double click. And for the self illumination, we're going to make it glow, we're gonna have to turn on the self illumination color, okay. Turn that on by clicking on it, and we don't wanna leave it black. We want to change that to the type of color that we need for our light fixture. So click on it. I'm actually gonna set it to give it a little bit of yellowish tint. It's not gonna be pure like yellow, just a little bit of yellow tint, so maybe around here. And then just press OK, and once you're done, just make sure that you select those 2 objects, control click, assign material selection. So now we got our glowy material there. Minimize the material editor, check what we have, if we render this out. Alright, great, we got our glow there. And let's go ahead and add a material onto our prop. Okay, let's go ahead, select the prop, press M for material editor. So for the prop there, I'm just gonna give it a regular standard material. Double click on standard material. This one I'm gonna call it prop 1 underscore matte. And for this one, I'm just gonna leave it as default, and I'm just gonna assign material selection. It's fine with me. If you wanna add some more colors here, or if you wanna mess around with the architectural material and add some metal texture here on the legs, that's fine. Remember, if you want to select the table here individually, all you gotta do is go to group and open the group, so you're able to select the elements inside the group individually, and then just make sure you close it again. Alright, now let me do a render again since I added a new material. Let's do a render. Okay, so we got our textures, we got our light fixture. Alright, we got our materials that we need. You see the glass window there, you see the reflection of the skeleton. See, he has a reflection there. So it's pretty nice using the architectural. It really simulates the reflection of a real mirror. Now we're gonna have to add some standard lights, 3D Max standard lights here, so that we have some nice shadows going on. Okay, right now everything is looking flat. There's no shadows casting. So let's begin by adding some lights here. We already have our light fixtures, right? But we actually need 3D Studio Max standard lights to create the shadows that we need, the illumination that we need. Okay, to make it look realistic. So go to Create tab. Let's go ahead and create our first light. In the Create tab, you're going to find in the categories that you see here, there's going to be this light bulb, and if you hover over it, it says lights. Click on it. For the drop down triangle here, make sure you click on standard. What we're going to be using is going to be the Omni light. There are different types of lights here. You see target spotlight, which will give you a light illumination that simulates a light that's coming from a flashlight. It's in a single direction type of light. And target direct lights, it's almost the same thing as a spotlight. The only difference is the direct light do not have a cone shape. Alright, it doesn't have a cone flashlight type of shape. Free spotlight, free direct light, they are similar to target spot and direct lights. Only difference is they have targets. And the skylight, it's if you want to have an outdoor scene, you could use that. For our scene, we're just going to be using the Omni light here, okay, which also allows us to illuminate in all directions. Okay, so click on Omni light, press F3 on your keyboard, so you're just looking at the wires. It's good to press F3 so that you could see exactly where you're placing the light. And just click and drag onto the somewhere down onto the floor. Okay. Now I see some students do this, or they just make a bunch of lights like this. So make sure you don't do that because your scene is just going to be overexposed. Let me just undo that. So just make sure you press F3 so you know exactly the lights that you're adding there. Okay, so create one light there. Right click on the background to exit the OmniLight. And press F3 on your keyboard again. Using the move tool, just go ahead and move it up. Alright. Now we want this light to be placed underneath the light fixtures. Okay, so we have two light fixtures, 1, 2. Alright, so we're gonna need 2 of these lights underneath the light fixtures. Okay, so we got one right here right now, and we're just gonna need to move it down, move it right next to this light right here. Press F3 on the keyboard, and I'm just gonna move it. You make sure that you use the arrows as you move, and this is a good time to use the top view. T for top view. Press F3 to go to wireframe mode. Okay, press L for left view. Good time to use different views as you do this. Okay, so yeah, I got my light fixture right here, and I am making sure that the OmniLight is right underneath that. Okay. Alright, so there you go. Press F3. So I got one light right there. That's good. Now what I'm gonna do is, if I render this out, let's go ahead and render this out. Let's check out what we have. Alright, so it looked like there is a light in the scene, but there are really, I don't think there's shadows here. So with that light selected, the OmniLight selected, go to the Modify tab. Make sure that you have shadows turned on right here. So in the general parameters, you're going to see shadows. Just turn that on. Okay, turn that on, and let's go ahead and do another render. Okay, so now there are shadows. I could see that the shadows being casted from the prop there, and we didn't see that previously. Okay, so there's shadows there now, and also behind the skeletal system there's shadows. His shadows is casting on the back wall, so that's how we could tell that the shadows are on. And the shadows are a little bit too harsh. If you want softer shadows, this is what we're gonna do. Let's say you want softer shadows. Okay, by default it's set to shadow map. What we could do is set it to area shadows. Alright, area shadows right here. And once you have set it to area shadows, you're gonna have a new rollout that's called area shadows right there. Click on area shadows. Now what we could do is adjust the area light dimensions. The bigger the value for the length and width, the softer the edges of the shadows will be. Okay, so for this one, we could just set it to 5 foot for the length and 5 foot for the width. So when we render this out, we could have softer shadows. Okay, and if you see there that it looks right now, the shadow quality is pretty bad. It looks like particles, look like dust there, right? So we could mess around with the shadow quality. So for the shadow quality, we could set it to 15 and render that out. Alright, that's still bad. Okay, I think we could bring down the area light dimensions. Let's just set it to 2 feet. Alright, bring that down a bit. Render. Okay, that's fine. This is okay, so it's not so dusty anymore. That is okay. And we could mess around with some more of the settings in the render setup later, so that we can get better quality renders. Okay, that'll be for later. Okay, so right now we have the OmniLight. Okay, and if you render this out, yeah, right now it's illuminating. Even is a little too harsh. What we want is we want a little bit of fall off. Okay, so an artificial light does not travel infinitely. It doesn't travel forever. And in this case, the OmniLight this omni-light here is traveling in all directions, okay, illuminating in all directions, and it's traveling forever, traveling infinitely. We want a certain fall off to this, okay? So how do you add a fall off so we can control how far the light travels? With the light, the omni-light selected, go to the intensity color attenuation right here. Click on that and turn on far attenuation, turn on use, and turn on show. Okay, this will allow us to give a fall off, use, and show. And once you do that, you zoom out, you're gonna see this circular gizmo being created. And what does this tell us is the light is illuminating even outside of the house, and we really don't want that. Okay, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna adjust the start value and the end value. Okay, so the start value is being represented by the inner circle here, and the end value is being represented by the outer circle here. Okay, and what we want to do is we want to make sure that the start value is at 0. All right, completely 0, so that we have nice softer shadows. And for the end value, which is going to be the bigger circle, okay, we want this to be, we want to bring it down so that it's not really going outside of the house like that. We got to bring it down just a little bit. Maybe like this is fine. And it's still outside, the gizmo is still kind of outside, but I think this is going to be quite manageable. So something like that. Now, what that means is, since we brought it down, all right, the end value down, the light is no longer gonna be illuminating up to that. Okay, so it's only gonna illuminate only up to this area. Okay, within that circle, gonna illuminate within that circle area. Okay, and so if we render this out, let's see what we have. There you go. And what we could do is, right now everything is just pitch black. All right, you see here, like we do have, you got the nice lighting right there. Okay, and that's good. It's setting the mood, but for this here is way too dark. Okay, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna have to add a fill light. Okay, a fill light here, so that we could at least see the details for the walls, and we could still see skeletal system from the back and the props. Okay, so we're gonna add another extra light there that will have a lower intensity than the main light. Okay, so go to Create tab, Omni Light. Okay, and press F3 on your keyboard. Just click and drag the Omni Light somewhere on the floor there. Right click to exit. Press F3 again to bring in the color. Move it up. So you just want to move it so that it's in the middle of the scene. Alright, you could press F3. So just make it so it's in the middle of the environment here. You don't need to put it underneath the light fixtures. Okay, speaking of lights, later we're gonna have to make a copy of the Omni Light here and put it underneath here also. Okay, forgot to do that. But right now we're on the fill light. Okay, so make sure that fill light is in the middle of the scene. And for the fill light, just go to Modify tab, and let's go ahead and rename that so we don't get confused. Okay, rename it fill light. All right, now we're gonna make sure that on the intensity color attenuation that we turn off the far attenuation. We do want this particular light to travel infinitely, so it will travel and bounce onto the walls. Okay, because we want our walls to show. Okay, so let's just turn off use, turn off show. Okay, and another important thing that we need to do, make sure that you do this for the fill light. For the multiplier, we're gonna set it down to a lower value. What is the multiplier? The multiplier is how intense the light is. The intensity of the light is the multiplier. So we're gonna bring this down to a very low value. Okay, the reason why we are bringing it down to a very low value is because we want the main light, which is going to be the first light that we created underneath our light fixture. We want this one to be our key light. the light that has the most intensity, so that it will set the mood for our scene. So this is going to be the most powerful light with the highest intensity. And then the fill light is just going to be there so that to fill our environment with a little bit of illumination so it's not so dark. But keep in mind that we don't want it to overpower our main light. The multiplier for the fill light, let's just go ahead and set it to around 0.02, okay? And let's go ahead and change the color of the fill light. Right now it's white. I want to give it a sickly type of mood, so I want to set a greenish tint to it. So I'm going to click here. So you want to change the color of your lighting, illumination, all you got to do is click on that rectangular shape and change it to whatever color you like. I'm just going to set it to green, a little bit tint of green. And now if I render this out, there you go. So it's setting the mood now. Now I actually want to change it to maybe a lighter green. There you go. Okay, something like that. And now for the light, I'm going to go back to the main light, which is the light underneath our fixture. Okay, go back to that light underneath the fixture, and it doesn't make sense right now that the color of the main light is white because our light bulb, our light fixture, is kind of yellowish. So we're gonna have to make this look like it actually makes sense. So click here and change the color of the main light to the type of color that you have for your bulb or for your light fixture. So in my case, it's like yellowish type of color. Yellowish type of color. Right, something like that, and press OK. Alright, if I render this out, okay, so that's how it looks right now. Okay. Okay, so let's see here. Alright, now what we're gonna do is we're gonna be duplicating the light that we have. Duplicating this. Hold the shift key. We're going to make a copy of the main light and put it underneath the other light that we have. This one we're gonna set it to instance and press OK. Press F3 on your keyboard. See what we have. So let's go ahead and let's set up the settings for the render so that we have a higher quality render. Go to rendering, render setup, and on the common tab here we could scroll down and you're gonna find output size right here. Okay, just click on the drop down arrow, and if you scroll you're gonna see HDTV. Let's go ahead and do an HDTV render, and if we render this out, there you go, we have a much better quality render there. And if you make sure that you find a good view, so a good view, this right now is not really a good view because you could see the inner part of the wall there. Again, I don't want that to show, otherwise it's not really going to look like an environment. Okay, so I could just zoom in, but then what if I zoom in, it looks like, alright, so that is fine. So something like that. Okay, if I render this out again, there you go. Okay, another render. If you need to just extend the wall so that you have a better view, you can. Okay, so I'm just gonna, I think I need to extend this a little bit, so I'm just gonna extend the walls here. So I'm gonna go to vertex selection mode, select the vertices and just move it, and then do the same thing for this one here. Go to vertex selection mode, move it, and then this one, vertex selection mode, move. Alright, so now I think I have more view that I could work with, so I could see the lights. Alright, much better. This is a good view. Render that out. Okay, so there we have our lights, we have our textures, we have our prop there and the skeletal system there. But I think the overall scene is way too dark. the render is too dark, you could go back to the lights and increase the intensity of the lights. Okay? So what I could do is I could go to each of my main light here underneath my fixture, light fixture, and then just crank it up to about 1.5. And for the fill light, I could crank it up to maybe 0.05. Okay, because everything looks just a little too dark. Alright, so something like that. I could see more of the textures. Okay, so now that we have increased the intensities for all of the lights, our scene, we could see a lot more of the details here, but we still gotta do something. Now what we could do is we could, if you look at the floor, it looks too dark. Okay, so in real life you're gonna see a little bit of the illumination on the floor also. Okay, so let's go ahead, and what we're gonna be doing is we're gonna just make a copy of the light from the underneath the light fixture. We're gonna copy it and then just set it below the ground. Okay, so select the lights that you have underneath the light fixture. You might want to zoom in. So select the lights that you have underneath the light fixture. Okay, press F3. We're gonna make copies of those so that it could illuminate some parts of the floor. So holding the shift key, use the blue arrow and move it down. And for this time, I'm actually gonna set it. Make sure you do not set it to instance. This time you're gonna have to set it to copy, because what we're gonna be doing is we're gonna modify the settings for the intensity, and we don't want it to affect the other lights that we originally created underneath the light fixture. Okay, so set it to copy, press OK. Alright, just down. Okay, and for the lights here that we just made a copy of, we're going to bring down the intensity of that. We don't want it to overpower the main lights that we have for our fixtures. So we're just going to set it to 0.5. 0.5, so it's going to have a lower value. So the lights from under the floor is also going to act, they're also going to act as fill lights, so they're going to have a lower intensity. And the ones underneath the light fixture are the lights that are going to have the highest intensity, the highest multiplier value. Okay, good. So now we actually have something that looks a little bit more realistic, where we got the light illuminating on the floor there. Okay, so this is all good, a basic environment. I hope you guys gained something from this tutorial and learn a little bit of the process of what goes on into creating a 3D environment.